The transport ship Solace drifted through the silent dark of space, carrying soldiers, diplomats, and crates of precious supplies to the world of Velar Prime, home of the ancient Velari Empire. Inside one of the lower decks, Sergeant Elias Grant sat quietly in his seat, the hum of the ship's engines like a heartbeat beneath his boots. His armor, freshly cleaned but full of scratches from older battles, gleamed faintly under the dim lights. Elias wasn't new to war. He had fought on frozen moons, in burning colonies, and inside ships that shook themselves apart. But this mission was different. It wasn't a war zone. It was a protection assignment, a royal escort for some alien princess he had never met. "Relax, Grant," said Lieutenant Voss, a broad-shouldered officer sitting across from him. "You're going to stand in a fancy hall, look tough, and not shoot anyone. Easiest job in the galaxy." Elias gave a small smile. "You say that now. Royal stuff always turns messy." Voss chuckled. "You're just paranoid." Maybe he was. But Elias had a strange feeling deep inside, a heavy weight he couldn't shake. The kind that came before something important. Or dangerous. The ship's intercom buzzed. "Attention, passengers. Prepare for planetary descent. Welcome to Velar Prime." Through the window, Elias saw the planet below, a shimmering world of silver seas and floating cities built on massive crystal platforms. It looked peaceful, almost unreal, like a painting. Arrival at Velar Prime as they landed on the main platform. The difference between human and Velari design was clear. Everything here looked alive. Towers that curved like coral, walls that glowed softly, air shimmering with golden motes of energy. Velari guards stood waiting in ceremonial armor, tall and elegant, their faces marked with glowing blue lines that pulsed when they spoke. A young alien aide approached the humans. "You are the soldier assigned to Princess Ayla Velari, yes?" Elias nodded. "Sergeant Elias Grant reporting as ordered." "Follow me," the aide said with a graceful bow. They walked through long corridors filled with soft music and strange fragrances. Every Velari who passed gave Elias a cautious look, curious, wary, even a little fearful. Humans were still new to the conquered of worlds. Some saw them as allies, others as unpredictable wildcards. Finally, the aide stopped in front of tall silver doors. "The princess is expecting you." The doors opened soundlessly, revealing a wide room bathed in blue light. A woman, or rather a Velari female, stood at the far end, surrounded by floating screens showing star maps and political charts. She turned slowly, and Elias saw her clearly for the first time. The Princess Ayla Velari was unlike any being Elias had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly like moonlight on water, and her eyes, deep violet with golden flecks, seemed to hold galaxies inside them. A silver crown rested on her head, delicate and alive, pulsing softly with her heartbeat. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just looked at him, studying him as if she already knew every thought in his mind. Elias straightened his back, trying to appear calm. "Princess Ayla, I'm Sergeant Elias Grant. I'll be your assigned protection detail during—" She interrupted softly, her voice melodic but firm. "I picked you long before they sent you." The words froze him in place. "Excuse me?" he asked, unsure if he heard right. She smiled faintly. "Do not be alarmed, Sergeant. You will understand in time." Elias frowned. He wasn't sure how to respond. He had worked with dozens of alien leaders, but none had greeted him with something like that. Still, he kept his tone professional. "I'm here to ensure your safety during the Concord meetings, Your Highness." "Nothing more?" Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "And yet, it will be so much more." Before he could ask what she meant, her advisor entered the room and began explaining schedules, security plans, and meeting details. But Elias barely heard any of it. His mind replayed her first words again and again. "I picked you long before they sent you." The observation deck that evening, Elias stood on the observation deck outside her chambers. The view stretched endlessly, stars like diamonds scattered across a velvet sky. Velar Prime's twin moons reflected light over the crystal towers below. He leaned against the railing, lost in thought. He wasn't the type to believe in destiny or fate. He believed in hard work, discipline, and doing what needed to be done. But something about her tone, it wasn't random. It was personal. Footsteps approached behind him. He turned. It was the princess herself, wearing a simple flowing robe that shimmered like liquid light. "You should rest, Your Highness," he said quickly. "I could say the same to you," she replied, her smile soft. "You humans do not hide your emotions well. Your thoughts are loud." Elias blinked. "You can read minds?" She laughed gently. "Not read, only sense the echoes. You carry many ghosts, soldier." He looked away. "War leaves marks. War leaves lessons," she said. "And I believe you were meant to teach one." They stood in silence for a moment, the wind brushing past them. Then she looked at the stars. "Do you know what the Valari call humanity?" Elias shook his head. "The young fire, bright, unpredictable, and dangerous. Many fear your kind will burn too quickly. But I see something else. You adapt, you endure, you change everything you touch." Her voice grew softer. "That is why I chose you." "Chose me? For what?" "To protect me," she said, turning to face him again. "Not because they sent you, but because I saw you, before any of this began." Her eyes glowed faintly, and for a moment Elias thought he saw something. Flashes of light, battlefields, a great shadow spreading across the stars. And himself standing beside her, his armor scorched but unbroken. Then it was gone. Elias blinked hard. "What was that?" "Possibility," she whispered. "A path that might come, or might not. But one thing is certain, Sergeant Grant. You will stand where others fall." He didn't know what to say. It felt like his chest tightened. He had faced death without fear before, but this was different. It felt like she had looked into his soul. First signs of trouble. The next morning, Elias joined her convoy as they traveled to the conquered council hall. A massive floating structure shaped like a ring of crystal and gold. The princess rode in the center hovercraft, surrounded by guards and diplomats. The route was secured, the skies clear. But halfway through, Elias's instincts screamed something's wrong. He scanned the buildings above. Nothing on sensors, nothing on comms. And yet his gut twisted. "Convoy, slow down," he ordered. "Check all aerial paths." The Valari guards looked annoyed. One of them, a tall officer named Captain Theris, said sharply, "Human, this is a secure route. Do not—" A blast cut him off. The lead vehicle exploded in a ball of blue fire. "Ambush." "Shields up!" Elias shouted. Energy bolts rained from above. Drones, small, fast, and lethal, darted out of nowhere. Valari guards panicked, returning fire wildly. Elias grabbed the princess and pulled her behind a transport door as another blast tore through the road. "Stay down," he barked, firing his pulse rifle. His shots hit 2 drones, sending them spinning. He switched to manual targeting, moving faster than the panicked aliens around him. His reflexes, honed by years of human combat, made him a blur. Then, as suddenly as it started, the attack stopped. The last drone fell smoking to the ground. Silence filled the air except for the crackle of flames. Elias turned to check on the princess, but she was already standing. Calm. Unafraid. "You knew," he said breathlessly. "You knew this would happen." She nodded slightly. "A shadow moves faster than the council expected. Someone wishes these talks to fail. You could have warned us." "I did warn you," she said gently. "I told you to trust your instincts." Elias realized she was right. His gut feeling had saved them. Not technology, not protocol, human instinct. For the first time, the Valari guards looked at him with something close to respect. Aftermath. Back in the palace, investigators swarmed the hangar, questioning everyone. The council wanted answers. The Valari Emperor ordered all humans confined to their quarters until the situation was clear. But Princess Ayla stopped them. "This man saved my life," she declared. "He is not to be confined. He is to be trusted." Her words silenced the room. Even the Emperor could not deny her authority. Later that night, Elias stood guard outside her chambers again. He could still hear her voice in his head. "I picked you long before they sent you." He looked out the window at the stars, distant, silent, eternal, and felt a strange pull in his chest. He didn't believe in fate, but maybe fate believed in him. Somewhere out there, danger was coming. He could feel it, and when it did, he would be ready. Because a human soldier had been chosen, and for reasons he couldn't yet understand, it mattered. The explosion from the ambush still echoed in Sergeant Elias Grant's memory. The smell of burning metal, the cries of wounded guards. the flash of blue plasma fire. It all played again in his head whenever he tried to rest. 3 days had passed since the attack, but Valar Prime was still on high alert. Security was doubled. Drones patrolled every corridor. The Conquered Council had postponed the peace meetings until they could find out who had tried to kill Princess Aela Valari. But despite the chaos, the princess seemed calm. Too calm. The investigation Elias stood inside the royal hall, watching the Valari investigators scan the wreckage of the destroyed convoy. The lead investigator, a tall alien with glowing white eyes, turned toward him. "You humans," he said, voice sharp, "your instincts are unpredictable." "How did you sense the ambush before it happened?" Elias crossed his arms. "Can't explain it. Just felt wrong." "Felt?" The investigator looked confused. "You mean intuition?" "Yeah, something like that." The alien shook his head slowly, almost disbelieving. "Strange. Our sensors showed nothing. No heat signatures, no cloaked crafts." Elias looked at the smoking wrecks. That's the thing about enemies. The best ones don't show up on sensors. He could feel the investigator's distrust. To the Valari, humans were still an enigma. Emotional, reckless, too instinct-driven for a species that had joined the stars only a century ago. Yet somehow, it was that same recklessness that had saved their princess. The princess's garden later that evening, Aela summoned Elias to her private garden, a place hidden high within the palace towers. It wasn't made of stone or soil. The plants here floated gently in the air, roots glowing with blue light, petals made of soft crystal. When Elias entered, she was standing by a pool of silver water, her reflection rippling like a living mirror. "You're troubled," she said without turning. "Just thinking," he replied, "still trying to figure out who attacked you." "I already know who sent them," she said quietly. Elias frowned. "You do?" "Yes, but saying the name would bring chaos before the truth can stand." Her words made him pause. "Then why not tell your council? They need to know." "They would not believe me," she said, turning to face him. "They believe only in proof, not in foresight." He looked at her curiously. "Foresight? You mean like seeing the future?" She nodded slowly. "Every heir of the Valari bloodline holds a fragment of our ancient memory. It connects us to time, past and possible." He didn't move. "Possible?" "Yes," she said softly. "The future is not one road. It is many paths shifting with every choice. I see echoes, faint, uncertain. But they always return to one thing." "What's that?" "You," she said simply. Elias blinked. "Me?" "You stand beside me in every vision," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "When the stars burn, when the empires fall, when something terrible awakens in the dark, you are there." Elias stared at her, unsure what to say. "Princess, I'm just a soldier. I follow orders. You're talking like I matter in some prophecy." "Not prophecy," she corrected gently. "Probability. The universe speaks in patterns, and you are one of them." He didn't believe in destiny, but the way she said it, calm, certain, almost tender, made his chest tighten. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Human and Valari over the next few days, Elias and Aela spent long hours together, in the council chambers, the training grounds, and sometimes in quiet hallways where no guards followed. He began to see the world through her eyes. The Valari were brilliant but bound by tradition and logic. Every decision was planned, calculated, weighed against the risk of dishonor. Humans were different. They leapt before looking. They made mistakes but learned fast. And that, Aela said, was what made them special. One night, as they walked through the palace garden, Aela spoke again. "Your people remind me of the storms of our homeworld," she said. "They come without warning. They destroy, and yet when they pass, the land grows stronger." Elias chuckled. "Not sure if that's a compliment." "It is," she smiled. "You burn bright. You refuse to fade. Even the universe itself seems to bend around your will." He didn't reply. But he felt something stirring, a quiet connection he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't romance. It was trust, a shared understanding that crossed species and worlds. The warning at dawn, the alarm screamed. Elias rushed into the command chamber, rifle in hand. Holograms flickered everywhere. A Valari officer shouted, "Energy spike detected beneath the city." "What kind of spike?" Elias asked. "Unknown, it's not ours." The screen showed a map of the capital, a red dot blinking beneath the palace itself. It was growing fast. Ayla entered, calm but pale. It begins sooner than I expected. What begins? Elias demanded. The Shadow War, she said softly. A war fought not with armies but with silence. The officers looked confused, but Elias stepped closer. Princess, tell me everything. She turned to him. Beneath this palace lies the core nexus, a fusion of technology and mind link. It connects every Velari leader through thought. If it falls, the Empire falls with it. And someone's trying to destroy it, she nodded, or corrupt it. Without hesitation, Elias grabbed his helmet and powered up his armor. Then we stopped them. The Velari officers hesitated. One of them whispered, We can't send a human into the core. It's sacred. Elias looked at them coldly. Your sacred system is about to explode. You want to argue tradition or you want to live? Ayla raised her hand. He goes with me. He sees what others fear to see. And just like that, the argument ended. The descent. They took an elevator deep beneath the palace, the air growing colder and heavier as they went down. The walls glowed with symbols older than any human language. The hum of energy vibrated through the floor. Finally, the doors opened into a massive chamber, a cathedral of light. The core nexus floated in the center, a sphere of swirling blue-white energy surrounded by rings of alien script. But something was wrong. Black tendrils of energy crawled across the surface like cracks spreading in glass. Stay back, Ayla warned. It's infected? Elias raised his rifle, scanning the shadows. Infected by what? Her voice dropped to a whisper. By thought. From the dark corners of the chamber, shapes began to move, thin humanoid figures with eyes like molten glass. They looked like Velari, but twisted. Their bodies flickered, half solid, half energy. Guards, Elias muttered. No, she said in echoes. Corrupted minds of those linked to the Nexus. The creatures turned toward them and screamed, a sound like metal tearing. Then they attacked. The fight Elias didn't wait. He opened fire, his rifle bolts tearing through the first wave. The corrupted beings fell, but their bodies broke into smoke instead of blood. They kept coming, faster, screaming louder. Back, he shouted. They're not dying. Ayla raised her hands, her eyes blazing gold. A pulse of light burst from her palms, throwing the creatures backward. The air shook with the sound of thunder. Go, she shouted. To the Nexus. Elias sprinted forward, covering her as she moved to the glowing sphere. Sparks rained down from above. He fired again, hitting a shadow that lunged toward her. It vanished in a burst of blue light. Ayla placed her hands on the Nexus. I can cleanse it, but I need time. You've got it, he yelled, reloading. The shadows closed in from all sides. Elias fought like a machine, dodging, firing, smashing, using every trick he'd learned in human wars. One grabbed his arm, its touch burning like ice, but he pulled free and drove his knife through its chest. The creature shattered like glass, then the ground shook. The Nexus flared, blinding bright. Elias, she screamed. It's overloading. He ran to her, pulling her away as the sphere exploded in a wave of blue energy. The blast threw them both to the ground. When the light faded, the shadows were gone. The chamber was silent again. Ayla lay breathing hard, her skin glowing faintly. You saved me. Again, Elias helped her up. Looks like you were right. I was meant to be here. She smiled weakly. You are the variable I could not predict. Aftermath and revelation back on the surface, the council was in chaos. The explosion had caused damage across the city, but the palace still stood. When the Emperor demanded to know what happened, Ayla spoke clearly. The core was corrupted, but we purged it. The humans saved us all. Whispers spread across the chamber. For the first time, the proud Velari bowed slightly toward a human soldier. Later that night, Elias found Ayla again on the observation deck. She was quiet, staring at the stars. You risked your life for me, she said softly. He shrugged. That's the job. No, she said. That's humanity. She looked at him with those glowing violet eyes. In my visions, I saw fire and ruin. But now I see something else. Every path that ends in death changes when you are near. You bend the future. Elias laughed softly. Maybe your visions need a patch update. She smiled. Or maybe humanity is the patch the universe never expected. They stood together under the twin moons, silent for a long moment. Around them, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. But deep in the black between worlds, something vast and unseen began to stir. The real enemy, waiting for its time. The days after the core Nexus attack were restless on Valar Prime. Repairs filled the air with smoke and noise. Soldiers patrolled the streets. Engineers worked without sleep. And diplomats argued about who was to blame. But no one spoke it out loud. The truth that Princess Aela Valari and Sergeant Elias Grant both knew. This was only the beginning. Tension in the council in the Grand Concord Hall. Leaders from 10 alien races gathered in fear. The hall glowed with silver light, but the mood was dark. The corruption in the core was not random, said Aela, her voice calm but firm. It was guided, a shadow sent by the Kreth Dominion. At the name, whispers spread through the chamber. The Kreth were an old enemy, a race of insect-like warriors who thrived on conquest. Their empire had been silent for decades, rebuilding after defeat. Now it seemed they were back. One alien lord pounded his staff. This is only the word of a Valari princess. Where is the proof? Aela looked to Elias. Show them. Elias stepped forward and placed a small device on the table. A projection flickered. Images from the core's security feed. It showed the corrupted energy signature, the same pattern found in Kreth technology. The council gasped. This proves intent, Aela said. They are coming. The Emperor's face hardened. Then we prepare for war. Preparation for battle. The Valari fleets activated, thousands of shining ships rising into the sky. Elias walked through the hangar with his small human detachment, checking weapons and armor. He still wore the same battlesuit, but now it carried the insignia of the Royal Guard. A silver crest shaped like a starburst. Voss, his friend from the transport ship, approached him. You've really made a name for yourself, Sergeant. Guarding a princess, saving the planet. Next thing you'll be Emperor. Elias smirked. Don't jinx it. I just want to get through this alive. Voss's smile faded. You heard the reports, right? Kreth ships have been spotted near the border worlds. They're not hiding anymore. Elias nodded. Yeah. I've seen this before. Peace always ends when people start to think they've outgrown war. He looked out across the hangar where Aela stood, speaking with her generals. Her calm presence steadied everyone around her. He didn't know if she was brave or simply pretending not to fear, but he admired it. The first attack. The warning came sooner than anyone expected. At dawn, the sky above Valar Prime turned red as Kreth ships emerged from hyperspace. Massive insect-like vessels shaped like blades. Their energy cannons lit the horizon with fire. Shields up, came the order. All forces to defense stations. The city's defense grid activated, glowing blue across the sky, but it wasn't enough. The first bombardment hit like thunder, shaking towers and shattering glass. Elias sprinted to Aela's command center. Princess, you have to move. The outer defenses are collapsing. Aela didn't flinch. We hold the capital. If Valar Prime falls, the Conquered falls with it. He grabbed his rifle. Then let's make sure it doesn't fall. They ran through corridors filled with smoke and flashing lights. Explosions echoed above. Drones and soldiers shouted orders. The palace guards fought at the gates, but the Kreth were already landing. Monstrous soldiers in black armor, with claws that sliced through steel. The defense of the palace. The courtyard turned into a battlefield. Elias took cover behind a collapsed wall and opened fire. His rifle's pulse bolts tore through enemy armor, glowing red with heat. Aela stood behind him, summoning arcs of light energy from her hands. Every time she moved, a wave of golden power pushed back the attackers. On your left, she shouted. Elias spun, fired twice, and dropped 2 Kreth soldiers. Nice call. The Valari guards around them were brave but unprepared for close combat. The Kreth moved fast and hit hard. Elias knew that if they kept fighting the Valari way, clean and organized, they'd lose. He switched to human tactics. Unpredictable, dirty and creative. He grabbed a grenade, tore off the safety and rolled it under a Kreth transport. The explosion flipped the craft, crushing 2 soldiers beneath it. Then he shouted to the guards, break formation. Use cover! Don't stand in the open. They'll cut you down. The Valari hesitated, unused to this kind of chaotic fighting. But when they followed his lead, the tide started to turn. The Kreth, expecting order, found only confusion and traps. Humans had learned long ago that chaos could be a weapon. For hours they fought, until the last Kreth fell, burning in the courtyard flames. The hidden truth, as the smoke cleared. Elias looked up at the ruined palace. That can't be their full force, he said, breathing hard. This was just the first wave. Ayla nodded grimly. They are testing us. Moments later, a faint beeping came from her wrist communicator. She frowned and pressed it. A hologram appeared, the Velari High Council. Their faces looked tense. Princess, one of them said, we intercepted a transmission. The Kreth fleet is not attacking alone. They are working with... The image crackled and vanished. A blinding light filled the chamber, followed by a deep rumble. Elias grabbed Ayla and pulled her down as part of the ceiling collapsed. When the dust settled, he saw it. A strike had hit the council tower itself. They were gone. Ayla's voice trembled just for a moment. They knew where to strike. How? Elias looked around. We've got a traitor. Someone fed them our coordinates. Her eyes darkened. Someone close to the throne. The new plan with the council destroyed, panic spread across the city. The Velari military waited for orders, but without leadership, confusion reigned. Ayla gathered what was left of the command staff in the war room. The holographic map showed dozens of red enemy signals closing in. We cannot win this fight by numbers, she said. We must win by surprise. Elias leaned over the table. The Kreth command ship. If we take that out, the rest of the fleet will fall into chaos. They rely on central coordination. One general shook his head. Impossible. Their flagship orbits above the capital. No one can reach it. Elias smirked. You've never met a human pilot. He pulled up his data pad showing schematics of an old Velari cargo ship. We strip this, load it with stealth plating, and sneak through their jamming fields. I can get us aboard their flagship. The generals looked uncertain, but Ayla smiled. Do it. Prepare the ship. The night before the mission, Ayla found Elias alone in the hangar, checking his rifle. The air smelled of fuel and burning metal. You should rest, she said quietly. He shook his head. Can't, too many people depending on us. She stepped closer. Elias, you fight like no one I've ever seen. You think faster than the machines, and you make others believe they can win. That is why I saw you in my visions. He looked up at her. I'm no hero. I just don't like losing. Her smile was gentle. And that is why humans frighten the stars. They stood in silence for a moment. Then she said softly, Tomorrow, if I do not survive. He stopped her. You will. I'll make sure of it. For a second, their eyes met. Human and Velari, soldier and princess, united not by duty, but by trust. The infiltration the next morning. Under the cover of storm clouds, the small stealth ship lifted off. Only 5 people were aboard, Elias, Ayla, and 3 Velari specialists. They slipped through the Kreth blockade, moving between massive ships like shadows between giants. The view outside was terrifying. Huge insectoid warships. Wings spread like black blades, blocking out the stars. Finally, the Kreth flagship appeared, a monstrous structure of dark metal shaped like a hive. Energy pulses crawled across its surface. Docking now, said the pilot. Once inside, we'll have minutes before they detect us. Elias nodded. Let's make them count. They landed in a maintenance bay and slipped inside, weapons ready. The corridors were alive with the hum of alien power, walls moving, lights pulsing like veins. Elias took point, leading the group toward the command core. They encountered guards, tall, armored Kreth soldiers, but Elias's training gave them the edge. Silent kills, quick moves, no hesitation. But just as they reached the central chamber, an alarm blared. Red lights flashed everywhere. They know we're here, shouted one of the Velari. Elias turned to Ayla. Go for the control core. I'll hold them off. No, she said, grabbing his arm. You can't face them alone. He grinned. You picked me, remember? Let me do what I do best. The last stand, Elias sealed the chamber door behind her and turned to face the incoming wave. Kreth soldiers poured in, dozens of them, claws glinting. He opened fire, the rifle roaring. Sparks flew, armor cracked, alien ichor splattered the walls. Every shot was a heartbeat, every second a victory. When his rifle overheated, he switched to his sidearm. When that emptied, he grabbed a fallen Kreth blade and fought with his hands. He didn't count the enemies anymore. He just kept moving, until the corridor was silent again, filled only with the smell of smoke. Inside the command chamber, Ayla reached the control core. Her hands glowed as she channeled her power, sending a wave of energy through the ship's systems. The Kreth computers screamed as they overloaded. Fire erupted from every console, Then suddenly, silence. Elias stumbled into the room, armor scorched, breathing hard. "You did it?" She nodded weakly. "The flagship's self-destruct is active. We must go." They ran back toward the docking bay as alarms blared again. The ship shook violently. A fireball tore through the hallway behind them. Elias threw himself over her, shielding her from the blast. Their small craft barely escaped as the Kreth flagship exploded in a brilliant flash, lighting up the victory over the Kreth flagship had brought a brief sense of relief to Valar Prime, but Elias knew better. The Kreth were cunning. Their empire didn't crumble because one ship exploded. They would return, stronger, smarter, more ruthless. And worse, Princess Aela Valari had been captured. It had happened so fast. During a scouting mission above the planet, the Kreth had struck again. A stealth fleet had landed under cover of a storm, bypassing defenses. They had overwhelmed the palace guards in minutes and taken the princess. Elias had been just a few meters behind, but even his speed and instincts hadn't been enough. He now stood at the edge of the capital's hangar, his armor scorched and battered, watching the stars for any sign of their prison ship. The hum of the remaining fleet's engines vibrated beneath his feet. His jaw tightened. "They think they can take her," he muttered. "They have no idea who they're dealing with." Planning the rescue, Elias gathered a small team of humans and loyal Valari soldiers. Only a handful were willing to risk their lives for the princess. "This mission isn't just dangerous, it's suicide," one of the Valari officers said. A tall figure named Saris. "Then we'll die with a purpose," Elias replied calmly. "We either bring her back alive or we don't come back at all." He projected a hologram of the Kreth dreadnought, the massive black ship orbiting the edge of Valar Prime's system. It was heavily armored, filled with countless enemy troops and bristling with weapons capable of destroying their entire fleet. "We have one chance," Elias continued. "Stealth, speed, and the element they never expect, humans. Our unpredictability is our greatest weapon." The team nodded, their faces serious. Every person knew the stakes. If the princess died, the Valari Empire could fall. Worse, the Concord of Worlds would crumble. Elias took a deep breath. "We're not just fighting for a princess. We're fighting for every world that still believes freedom is worth defending." Infiltrating the dreadnought under cover of darkness, Elias led the team aboard a small stealth vessel, cloaked and silent. The craft glided through space, dodging patrols with movements no machine could predict. Inside, the tension was thick. Every creak, every hum of the ship's engine sounded like a thunderclap. The Valari specialists handled the alien tech, translating and bypassing security systems, while Elias kept a careful watch. Finally, they reached the docking bay of the Kreth dreadnought. It was massive, dark, and terrifying. Energy shields pulsed over the hull and searchlights scanned the emptiness. Elias's jaw tightened. "Remember the plan. Fast in, faster out. No heroics. We get her or we don't leave." The team climbed into the docking tube, sliding silently into the dreadnought. Every step echoed in the corridors, every shadow seemed alive. It wasn't long before they encountered their first resistance. A pair of Kreth guards, massive black-armored soldiers with glowing red eyes. Elias moved first. He fired with precision, hitting one in the chest and sending it crashing into the wall. The second lunged, claws extended. Elias rolled to the side, slashing it with his combat knife. The sound of metal tearing filled the corridor. "Keep moving," he shouted. The team sprinted forward, deeper into the dreadnought. The core prison finally, they reached the central holding chamber. It was enormous, a mix of alien metal and energy fields. And there she was, Princess Aela, her hands glowing faintly as she tried to resist the psychic restraints that bound her. Her violet eyes widened when she saw Elias. "You came," she whispered, a mixture of relief and disbelief in her voice. "Of course I did," he said. "Nobody touches you and gets away with it." The psychic restraints pulsed, sending waves of energy that knocked several soldiers backward. Elias gritted his teeth. "Hold on. I'm going to break these chains." He moved quickly, scanning the device controlling her restraints. With a Valari specialist guiding him, Elias disabled the outer panels, short-circuiting the containment systems. Sparks flew, alarms blared, but the restraints weakened. The Kreth guards noticed and charged. Elias fired, throwing a grenade that shattered the energy field and sent the nearest soldiers flying. Aela's power surged, adding her energy to the chaos. "Go!" she shouted. We can finish this together. The escape begins. The team moved as one, a coordinated mix of human cunning and Valari precision. They sprinted down twisting corridors, dodging energy blasts and disabling Kreth soldiers along the way. But then, the dreadnought shuddered. A deep rumble ran through the metal floors. They're initiating self-destruct, one of the Valari shouted. We must hurry. Elias grabbed Ayla's hand. Stay close. No stopping. We run or we die. They raced through the corridors past explosions and collapsing walls. Elias used every trick he knew, sliding under debris, using walls for cover, and improvising weapons from fallen Kreth gear. Every step brought them closer to the exit and closer to freedom. Facing the Kreth commander, before reaching the hangar, they encountered the Kreth commander, massive, towering, armored in black with energy blades crackling in each hand. You think you can steal my prize? The commander hissed. You are insignificant. Elias stepped forward, rifle raised. I'm more than insignificant. I'm human, and humans don't quit. The commander attacked. Elias dodged, rolling under a swinging blade. He fired several quick bursts, hitting the armor joints. The Kreth faltered. Ayla unleashed a pulse of energy, striking the commander with raw force. Elias followed, lunging with his knife, piercing the armor at a weak point. The Kreth roared and fell. Elias turned to see Ayla, still glowing with her power, looking at him with trust and pride. Together, she said. Together, he agreed. The final flight. The docking bay was in chaos. Explosions rocked the ship. Fire and smoke filled the corridors. They climbed aboard the stolen shuttle, engines sparking as the Kreth dreadnought began to collapse. Elias piloted with skill born of years of human ingenuity. He dodged falling debris, narrowly avoiding energy blasts from pursuing enemy ships. Ayla guided the shuttle with her psychic link, stabilizing it as they shot into the void. Behind them, the dreadnought erupted in a spectacular explosion, lighting the stars with fire. When they reached orbit around Valar Prime, the shuttle coasted silently. The princess looked at Elias. You were in every vision, she said softly. But I never saw you like this. Brave, clever, unstoppable. Elias shrugged, tired but smiling faintly. Guess humans are full of surprises. She stepped closer. Not just humans, you. You are the one who bends the future. He looked at the stars, then at her. We make our own luck. And sometimes that's enough. Aftermath. Back on Valar Prime, the conquered council praised the rescue. The Kreth forces had been scattered and demoralized. The capital survived, and the princess returned to her rightful place. For the first time, the Valari looked at humans differently. They were not just allies, and they were unpredictable, daring, and vital. And in Elias, they saw the heart of that daring spirit. Ayla and Elias stood on the observation deck, overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected light across the rebuilt towers. You saved more than my life, she said. You saved the Empire. You saved the conquered. And in doing so, you changed the way we see the universe. He looked at her, tired but resolute. Just doing my job. No, she replied, her eyes glowing faintly. You are more than a soldier. You are the reason hope still exists. Elias took a deep breath, gazing at the stars. Somewhere, deep in the darkness beyond the galaxy, a new threat waited. But for now, humanity had proven its worth. The calm that had settled over Valar Prime was fragile. The Kreth dominion, though weakened, had not vanished. Their scouts lingered at the edge of Valari space, plotting revenge. But for now, the city rebuilt. The people cheered. The conquered council resumed work, stronger, united, and wary. Yet Sergeant Elias Grant knew the war was far from over. He stood at the edge of the palace balcony, staring at the twin moons and the shimmering towers of the capital. Beside him, Princess Ayla Valari joined him silently, her violet eyes reflecting the moonlight. You've done more than anyone could ask, she said softly. You've changed everything for us. Elias shook his head. I didn't do this for praise. I did it because it had to be done. Because people depend on it. And because I trust you. Ayla's eyes softened. And I trust you. That is why I said, I picked you long before they sent you. He stared at her, the weight of those words sinking in. Somehow, amidst war and chaos, a connection had formed, a bond that transcended species, language, and culture. The shadow returns. The celebrations were short-lived. Sensors picked up a massive fleet entering Valari space. Unlike the previous attacks, this was an organized armada, moving with precision, discipline, and speed. "They've learned," Elias said grimly. The Kreth didn't forget. "They won't forgive." Ayla's expression hardened. "They bring their full strength. This is the Shadow Fleet. If they reach the capital, the conquered will fall and countless worlds will follow." Elias clenched his fists. "Then we stop them. And this time, we don't wait for them to make a move." The strategy in the war room. Ayla projected a holographic map of the approaching fleet. Red blips moved like a swarm, larger than anything they had faced. "Their flagship survived," she said. "And it's at the center. If we take it down, we cripple their command structure." Elias nodded. "We can't just attack. Too many of us will die. We need unpredictability, speed, and precision, the human way." Ayla looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. "You lead the strike team. I'll coordinate from the fleet. Together, we will turn the tide." Elias felt a surge of determination. "Then let's show the universe why humans survive when everything else falls." The strike team, Elias's team, consisted of the best humans and Valari soldiers. They boarded small stealth crafts armed with both Valari technology and human ingenuity. "Remember," Elias said, "this is not a rehearsal. Every move counts. Don't hesitate. Adapt, fight, and survive. If one of us falls, we make sure it counts for the mission." The team nodded. Fear was there, but so was resolve. As they launched into space, the capital watched silently. The moons reflected the fleet's glow, creating a tapestry of light and shadow. The battle begins. The strike team approached the Shadow Fleet with calculated speed. Human piloting skills allowed them to dodge patrols and mines that would have trapped even the most advanced Valari crafts. They reached the Kreth flagship undetected. The massive vessel floated like a black mountain, pulsing with energy. "Docking sequence initiated," Elias commanded. "Stay sharp. Once inside, it's close combat all the way." The stealth ships attached to the outer hull. The team moved inside through maintenance tunnels, evading automated defense systems. Inside the enemy ship, the interior of the Kreth flagship was dark and foreboding. Alien machinery hummed and walls pulsed with strange energy. Shadows moved unnaturally, hinting at the presence of Kreth soldiers. Elias led the charge. His pulse rifle tore through enemy armor, and his combat knife found gaps where bullets could not reach. The Valari soldiers followed his lead, fighting with precision and grace. Finally, they reached the central command chamber. There, at the core of the ship, stood the Kreth commander, larger, more terrifying than before, glowing with energy and rage. "You again," the commander hissed. "You dare interfere in the will of the Kreth Dominion?" Elias stepped forward. "I dare. Because your war ends here." The battle erupted. Bolts of energy, pulses of light, and the clash of blades filled the chamber. Elias moved like a force of nature, human reflexes and ingenuity giving him the edge. When the Kreth attacked in numbers, he improvised, turning corridors into traps and leading enemies into each other's path. Ayla, connected psychically from the fleet, sent bursts of energy through the chamber, disorienting enemies and shielding the team. Together, human skill and Valari power became unstoppable. The final confrontation. The Kreth commander roared and unleashed a massive energy wave. Elias ducked behind a console, shielding Ayla with his body. "You rely on her power," the Kreth snarled. "Without it, you are nothing." Elias gritted his teeth. "Maybe, but humans are more than power. We adapt, we endure, and we fight for what we believe in." With a final, desperate move, he leaped, driving his knife into the core of the Kreth commander's armor. Sparks and energy erupted. The commander screamed and fell, lifeless, collapsing in a storm of fire and shadow. The central systems of the flagship began to destabilize. Ayla's psychic link pulsed, opening a channel for the team to escape. Escape and victory. The strike team sprinted toward the exit as alarms blared. The Kreth flagship shook violently, energy tearing through its corridors. Elias piloted the shuttle with skill, weaving through debris and explosions. Ayla stabilized the craft with her psychic power. Behind them, the flagship erupted in a massive explosion, lighting the stars with fire. The fleet watched as the Kreth forces scattered, their command structure destroyed. Victory was theirs, hard-won, bloody, and decisive. Back at Valar Prime, the people cheered. The Concord Council recognized the human soldiers and their Valari allies as heroes. The aftermath and the calm that followed, Ayla and Elias stood on the observation deck once again. The stars were bright, the twin moons casting silver light across the capital. "You've changed the galaxy," she said softly. "The Kreth will never forget humanity." Elias shrugged, smiling faintly. "We just did what we had to. We didn't ask to be heroes, but maybe that's the point." Ayla reached out, placing her hand over his. "You've proven that humans are more than just fire and chaos. You are hope." He looked at her, feeling the weight of everything they had endured. "And you've shown me that some bonds, human or Valari, are stronger than war, stronger than fear." She smiled. "Then perhaps the future isn't just about survival. Perhaps it's about unity. A new era with the Kreth defeated. The conquered entered a new era. Humanity was no longer just a newcomer to the stars. It was a force to be reckoned with. A symbol of courage and unpredictability. The Valari Empire, inspired by the bravery of a single human soldier, began to reevaluate their traditions, embracing adaptability and innovation. Ayla ruled not only with wisdom, but with a deeper understanding of the bonds that crossed species and worlds. And Elias? He remained at her side, a soldier chosen long before the universe even noticed. A protector, a friend and a symbol of human resilience. In the quiet of the palace garden, under the light of the twin moons, Ayla looked at Elias. "I picked you long before they sent you," she said once more. Elias nodded. "And I'll be here long after the stars forget our names." They stood together, gazing at the galaxy, a human and an alien princess, ready for whatever the universe would throw at them next. Somewhere in the darkness, new threats waited, but humanity had shown its worth, and hope burned brighter than ever.